Now, riding a slow bike fast is a lot more satisfying than riding a fast bike slow. Now, this is not a new statement, but it's particularly apt for bikes like this. Say hello to the Hero Xtreme 125R. Now, this baby brawler is the smallest sporty commuter that Hero makes, and it is quite something. After getting a short stint at the Hero CIT facility in Jaipur, we have finally gotten it here in Pune for a comprehensive road test review. And in this video, I'm going to be telling you what this bike is like to live with in the real world, what it is like to ride, how the suspension deals with our roads, how the handling is, whether or not it is actually as sporty as it looks. All these questions will be answered in this video. Welcome to our road test review of the Hero Xtreme 125R, and before we proceed, if you like this video, do give us a thumbs up, share this video with like-minded enthusiasts, subscribe to the Evo India channel if you haven't already, and make sure to smash that bell icon to stay notified for all things thrill of riding. Now, the Hero Xtreme 125R is the sort of bike a beginner will be looking at, as they should be. And there, especially when it's going to be a first bike, the way it looks does matter quite a bit. And on that front, the Hero Xtreme 125R is a stunning looking bike in my opinion. It looks properly sporty, it looks aggressive. In fact, I feel it looks a little more aggressive than the other bikes in the lineup. Its bigger sibling even more than the Xtreme 160R in that matter. So, what you're looking at here is the blue color of the Xtreme 125R, and it is striking. All the grey and blue accents, they go really well together. These shrouds around the tank, they look particularly stunning. The headlight at the front, that is a bit debatable as to whether or not it goes with the whole design. I quite like the way it looks. You let me know in the comment section down below what you think of it. Then this rear section, I really love how the tail light is integrated into the cowl at the rear and these blue accenting grab rails at the rear. So the whole design of this bike I feel is quite nice. The attention to detail also is there and present and accounted for. Things like the sari guard and the rear tire hugger, they go a long way in making the bike look bigger, because it is running a pretty skinny 120 section rear tire, but the way the sari hugger is like a half semi disc around the wheel and this rear tire hugger comes, it does a lot. It goes a long way in making the bike feel bigger, which in turn makes you, the rider, feel a lot better about your purchase. Now, powering this Hero Xtreme 125R is a 124.7cc single-cylinder air-cooled engine. Now, this engine is good for 11.4 bhp at 8,250 rpm and 10.5 Nm of torque at 6,500 rpm. This engine is mated to a 5-speed gearbox, which sends power to the rear wheel, of course. Now, what is this like to ride? Because the numbers just tell half the story, because the end result is actually pretty impressive. The key takeaway from this bike is the refinement that it offers. It's fairly vibe-free throughout the rev range, and only when you're clipping the red line is when you actually feel any sort of buzz and strain. And even at that point, though there's not much power to be had over there, the buzz is not uncomfortable in the slightest. The meat of the power is focused in the low end and the mid range, which makes it great for city commuting. You get enough drive in all gears, meaning that it's also very tractable. You can keep it at a higher gear and have single-digit speeds or even low double-digit speeds and really not feel any strain from the engine. I found myself doing 30 km/h in 5th gear and the bike just trundled along. Of course, it won't dart off the line. It doesn't have that kind of power, but at the same time, it won't bog or it won't make you need to shift as many gears as well. And coming to shifting gears, the clutch action is light. The gear shifts are a little soft. In my opinion, they could do with a little more tactility, but that is by no means a deal breaker. It just takes a little getting used to. So the overall riding experience is one that is very engaging to ride, especially for a bike of this size and a bike of this power output. It still feels really engaging, it feels really peppy, and that is also aided by the handling. In terms of cruising, because this is going to be the single bike in the garage for many people that get it, so you can actually go on the highway on this as well. Now, Hero claims around 66 kilometers to the liter. Anytime you open the instantaneous fuel economy, even at 80, when you're cruising, if your RPMs are around 5,800 to 6,000, it is showing an instantaneous fuel economy of around 60 kilometers to the liter. So that is quite impressive as well. And from a 10-liter tank, if you extrapolate that, the range should be well over 500 kilometers on a full tank. Let's talk about the ride and handling of the Hero Xtreme 125R, because this is an aspect of the bike we couldn't explore to its full depth at the CIT facility, because we just got to ride it at the handling track over there, which you all know is a pristine smooth surface of tarmac, no undulation, no bumps whatsoever. So out in the real world is where we actually got to experience this Xtreme 125R and all of its capability, and I must say I'm quite impressed. As Atish said in the first ride review, the front end is so light, it's so reactive and it's so communicative that it actually takes some calibrating and getting used to, because on bigger bikes, especially with thicker tires up front, you just don't get this kind of immediacy in the way the bike turns and enters a corner. So that takes a little getting used to, and it's also very reactive. So even smaller bumps or stones, they actually do communicate and you do feel them in the bars. So on the handling front, this really does a good job of keeping you engaged and entertained through and through. Now coming to the ergonomics of the bike, you're dealing with a 794 mm seat height, which is quite comfortable, and it should be for riders of all shapes and sizes. If you are above 6 foot, you might find that these tank recesses, they come out a little too much, and they also start from here, so you don't get that much room to lock your leg in, and that might create you to cause a rather aggressive bend in your leg just to fit comfortably. But for me and for riders shorter than me, it should be no problems whatsoever. Now in terms of your upper body, you're fairly upright and you're reaching to a relatively wide and flat handlebar, and the handlebar is also closer to the rider, so it's not an extended stretch. Again, this is something that shorter riders will appreciate greatly. Now in terms of the chassis setup, you have a diamond frame that hangs off of 37 mm telescopic forks at the front and a hydraulic monoshock at the rear. Now this, like most Heroes of recent times, does a very good job of dealing with our Indian roads, and at slower speeds, it gobbles up bumps, potholes and all fairly well without unsettling you as the rider. Once the speeds do pick up, say above 60 km per hour, the suspension does feel like it is getting fairly busy and it is bouncing about quite a bit, and that does translate to the rider as well. But back off a little and things get much better. It's a lot more pliant and you can have a much nicer time. But it's only when the speeds go really high is when you feel like the suspension is working overtime to compensate for the bad roads that we have here. And coming back to the sharp steering, it not only aids in having a good time in the corner, it also comes really handy in the city, because flicking through traffic takes little to no effort. All you have to do is point it in the right direction and it will follow any line that you choose for it to. That, coupled with the good low speed ride quality, makes for a really good commuter bike, and especially when it looks like this, you have all the eyeballs on you. Now this is the ABS variant, so the front disc, which is 276 mm in diameter, is ABS enabled. There's also an IBS variant, which is essentially Hero speak for combi brake system, which uses a smaller 240 mm disc at the front and the same 130 mm drum at the rear. Now braking performance is fairly solid. The one thing I would have liked is a little more initial bite, because a lot of the braking happens after you've already pulled the lever in a fair bit, so a little more initial bite would have been appreciated. But then again, that is really an issue only if you're going really fast, which is not something this bike is really meant for. One extra thing when you actually up your skills, this is not something I recommend for beginners, and especially not in public roads. When you do have the safe space with no traffic, you can actually lock up the rear and have a bit of fun with that as well. So all in all, the chassis setup, it ties in together to make for a really comfortable bike, one that is sporty, but at the same time that you wouldn't mind living with on a daily basis at all. You can ride all day, commute to work and back, take it out on the occasional highway jaunt, and on the weekends you can also take it to the twisties and have a whole lot of fun with it. And especially for a bike like this, which is going to be a beginner's bike, you can't ask for a lot more. Now that I have spent some time with the Hero Xtreme 125R in hustling bustling Pune, what do I think about it? Well, to be very honest, it has lived up to all of the expectations and then some. Now in terms of features, this doesn't have that much to boast about. It has a traditional negatively lit LCD display similar to that on the other Xtremes. There's no real connectivity to speak of, but I don't think as a beginner you really should be bothering yourselves with those things. What you get is a really engaging, very competent package, one that will keep you entertained throughout your learning periods as a rider, and it is also very sporty, so that also covers that part of the whole riding equation. In terms of the price, You're paying around 95,500 for the IBS variant. Pay another 5,000, that's rupees 99,500. Let's say a lakh rupees, you're getting the ABS variant. I suggest if you are getting this, get the one with the ABS. Pay a little extra because the safety net of ABS is particularly needed, especially when you're starting off to learn. The pros really outweigh all of the cons if there are any real cons to speak of, and this is a really competent package and you really can't go wrong with the way it is priced as well. But now there is a big question, there's a big elephant in the room. Now that we have road tested this bike and we have come off fairly thoroughly impressed with it, which one should you be getting, this or the TVS Raider? That's exactly what we plan to do next. Pit both bikes back to back and tell you which one you should buy. But in the meantime, if you like how this looks and if you are considering getting a sporty commuter, I definitely urge you to go out, get a test ride and definitely make your choice then. That's been it for this video. I hope you like this video and thank you for watching.